All right, you're good.
Okay, all right, we'll call the meeting to order. The first order of business is public comment. Is there anyone here for any public comment about anything? Okay, we'll move on to approve the minutes for the April meeting. Everyone's got those minutes?
So moved.
A second?
I'll sign it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll turn this over to Blooming Gardens, introduction of your housing.
Hi, I'm Matt Wall, Associates Architects out of Buffalo. This is Chris Jock, CEO of Coding, and Tom Whitney, CEO of Stelling. So we've been working with Tom and Chris for a year and a half, 2 years now, working on affordable housing submissions for the state of New York, New York State Homes and Community Renewal. We went in last round to put in, I think we believe it was 34 existing units and 4 new units of housing, owned by Coding, 34 to rehab them, and then 4 new units for Stell. All of the applications that did 4 were in our geographic region, and we were told that we were 1 point away from getting funded, which is really good given the 15 to 20 applications that went in. So basically our team has been going through ways of strategizing to make sure that we have a really good chance of getting funded next time and don't leave any points on the table. And also doing so, not just doing it for those units, but provide more quality housing as well, which is what's important and what we want to do. So a while back, prior to submitting the application, Chris came to the table with a parcel that is currently owned by the land bank. And these are 7 current parcels located at near the intersection of Spring Street and Crossman Street in Jamestown. Crossman runs on the north side of these parcels, 1 parcel away. You'll see it there, center line of Crossman running east-west. So we didn't do anything with these for our first application due to funding constraints and reasons we couldn't get them in. And we were sort of waiting on seeing where the zoning rewrite might be as well, if it would be more favorable to put these in under their new zoning code. But unfortunately that hasn't progressed as far as we would have wanted to, but okay, so we're here. So we went through a couple options internally. One of the options was to do a multifamily building, 3 stories with something in the rear. Unfortunately, that does not meet the current zoning code, which is zoned R2. So R2 is zoned for 2-family housing, and there are currently 7 existing parcels on offer. So we want to, rather than go through an exercise that opens up everyone potentially to some pain with the use variance, which may or may not be allowed, we want to do the best that we can to fit with the neighborhood and to fit with what the zoning code allows, which is 2-family housing. So doing that, this is the first page is the existing combined site plans, and just to note where my arrow is. So these are all existing parcels. These are the parcel lines in between. So this is sort of an abnormally shaped parcel, definitely not conforming with current code, nor do any of these due to the lot width not being 70 feet. That's what the current code requires for new lots in R2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is a weird sort of like flag lot that's a half lot in the back that's owned by somebody else, Mr. Pigman, and then the final lot down here. So the second page of the packet and also on the screen is what we're proposing. So here, let me go back really fast and see if this is on. So I just want to, for people who aren't aware or can't visualize this site, which is, don't blame you not knowing every street in Jamestown. Each of these little lines here running north-south on the page represents 1 foot in grade change, which means it's dipping down from the street, and these are 5-foot intervals here. Within the first 20 or so feet, we are dropping 10 feet from the street. So it's like a lot of Jamestown is. It's hilly and it's jumping up and down and going down. So there's significant grade change to deal with there, and our proposals are taking that into account. So going back to the overall site plan, is showing the totality of the development, which would be each of these houses, which is noted with the number 1 down here, little hatch around it, and they are repetitively placed on each of the existing lots. and each house would get a driveway and a parking pad next to it, along with an upper and lower apartment unit. Each of the apartment units proposed, and it's for funding reasons as well as the clientele that are going to be served, are one-bedroom apartments. We put a table here just to get feedback as well for how this would proceed if we get, you know, the good feedback that we're hoping to receive today. What would be the next steps and what are the issues? So what I mentioned prior, the way that the zoning code is currently written, you're only allowed to do to construct a single-family house on a pre-existing lot that does not meet code requirements. So the biggest problem that we have is all of the existing lots are not even close to being 70 feet wide. The table down here, and this is highlighted in the gray, we show what they are. So you have lot width of 50 is 52.30 is the biggest, and the smallest is 40. So we're missing that by quite a bit. And also the lot area is also not meeting current code. You need 10,000 square feet. Most of them are in the 5 to 6 range, with the ones I pointed to at the top prior, and the other half lot does not even come close to meeting it. And the other one that is potentially we would need variances for are the side and potentially rear yards for a few of them, but just by a bit. And the zoning code does have a thing in there, a clause that allows you to use the average front setback, which if you were going off of the 25 feet you would need, we wouldn't have that. But we average it out in the vicinity, and we're confident that we're meeting that. And the one house that we have down here, we show that we demonstrate that we're in line with it. But across the street as well, we're pretty close to meeting that front setback. So we would want to fit in with the neighborhood and not build closer to the street than it's there. But we don't want to build too far back either, because we have to deal with the hill. And the hill is going to be a huge pain to structure.
And these are all area variances and not use variances, correct?
Yes, and then the area variance, so from what we understand in my past, use variances are very hard to get, and they have a lot higher bar. So we're going for the area variance, which is hopefully an easier variance to get based off of pre-existing conditions and meeting the rest of the code.
And we got the zoning officer here. Larry, have you any initial input on this, or?
We've had some phone conversations, and I mean, I don't foresee anything being a huge problem. I mean, we're just a casual conversation, and the office seems to be receptive to what he's proposing. But this is the first we've seen.
It seems to be in tune with the neighborhood character.
Yeah, I mean, it fits with what's adjacent there. There are some singles and doubles, and actually the next page we'll go to, I think that'll help you visualize this a little bit better. So we have, let's see, the right image here outlines the project site in red, and then we're showing, let me zoom a little bit. It's a little, I'm not used to trackpads. Right. So we're showing, because we don't have the surveys for these properties, we're measuring from the apparent front of the house to the street, which is the actual street edge. But when we took it into the survey, the right-of-way actually goes inboard of the face of sidewalk closest to the house by like another 10 or 15 feet. But that's similar to, we show the one down here, which is on the same side of the street at 39 feet. And the other measurements are very similar to that, if not closer. So if anything, we're going to be providing a better conditions there in relation to the street. And yeah, as you see, they're kind of, I mean, you can see that these are very similar in lot width as well. I didn't pull all the GIS data for this, but they are within like the 50, 40-ish range. Some of them are a little off, but they're pretty close. So we're fitting in basically with what's there. Another thing I want to talk about is we pulled some aerial imagery from Google Maps, and Google Maps is weird. They have like one flyby of the area and it'll be cloudy or snowy, and you don't get all the years for some reason. But for the years that we found, I believe this was in the 90s, they had, and also the street view images too that weren't updated. And I know from speaking to Larry as well, there were several houses here that were absolute monsters. They were like old single-family houses, I believe, Larry.
No,
that
they
were
were
then.
built as apartments.
Oh, they were
There's
built
8
as
to
apartments.
12 units.
Oh, okay. So.
I think there's still one beast still down there, but there's, I think we took 3 down.
So that's good to know then. I didn't know it was cut up. So if anything, now that we're going back and reverting to the current zoning, we're decreasing the density by a ton compared to what historically was there, and it's meeting more the intent of the code of what currently exists. So we put in some typical layouts here. We're still working through this. I don't know how important this is to understanding it, but we wanted to just give you a little look of to sort of understand, you know, a gist of what we're proposing. So the middle plan is coming in off of Spring Street, and this is the one door into that grade level unit you would enter into this apartment. Because it drops so much to the rear, which is at the top of the page, we worked with the land and provided this sort of like garden level or like basement level portion of this apartment. So that would be the first one. And then the second unit, we have a stair that is shown here in the middle of the page for the ground floor unit, and it's in that area. And this goes up to the second floor, and we were able to gain back some space on the second floor for this one floor unit. So typical idea of an elevation, we went through the exercise, and I'll show you later, of how we can vary these so it doesn't feel like I don't know, sometimes you get something like this done and it looks like you use the same color siding, looks like witness protection almost. We don't want witness protection in Jamestown. We don't want it anywhere. We want to have it look nice, we want to have it varied enough, but we also want it to be constructible as well. So we have to be cognizant of cost, but also making it worthwhile. So each one will get a porch in the front. This would be the right would be the entry to upstairs, left down, typical windows, and then windows in the front, and a little vent. And then looking on the right side here, this is the street side is over on the right, so you can see just how much this dips. We pick up another half level here, and then mechanical in this zone here. So that would be a south elevation, and then this just gets mirrored on the other side with a door to a mechanical room that would be shared by the building. And then at the rear, that apartment gets its own little patio on the back. So we try to break up the front for the one unit, and then the rear gets the back. So,
Are you planning to do anything with so I've walked the site quite a few times, and it backs to the North Main Street properties.
yeah.
On that slope side, is the backyard going to have any use at all?
So we're still working through that, and we think maybe, but we don't want to. So let's go back to let me answer it in a better way, so I can get something that instead of saying, what do you want? So let's go to right. So this dips. So a lot of the grade change happens near the street. So I just talked about this with my engineer. I said, this is going to be something that comes up at the meeting. There you go. I'm good. You're asking good questions. So what we don't want to have is a giant wasteland of nonsense kind of that doesn't like have a purpose, but we also don't want to have it being overgrown. So on the actual steep portion of it, we're proposing some sort of lowly invasive, not very high maintenance required plants. And then in the rear, there may be an opportunity to provide some areas that don't slope that much, but I think we're still working through. And part of getting the comments here of, ideally we would want something that doesn't cause a lot of maintenance for the client, and that may not get a lot of use and could potentially encourage people to hang out back there or not. I don't know. I don't want to push anything down. What may or may not happen. So we're still working through it, but I think that there could be some sort of small areas back there, at least in close proximity to the house, that would be maintained and available for the residents. But I think it would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm speaking out of line, but based on our understanding and discussion to date, I think we want to keep it as maintainable as possible and keep a sort of like a nice defined area between that and maybe what will happen in the rear with maybe other plantings that aren't that don't need to be maintained as much, and we could work through that as we progress the submission.
I don't see children living in this area, in these apartments. Do you, as one bedrooms, it's maybe, or
Most likely not.
most likely not? Yeah.
Yeah, if it's one bedroom, then we wouldn't put, usually we'd have a two bedroom if we'd have
Right,
children
right.
in it, so.
Yeah, and
Maybe older, disabled,
Correct, but I work for Stell, so we have,
Okay.
part of our folks in there, so we've got 10 designated, in this area for Stell folks.
Yes, the Spring Street location is designated for supportive housing.
Okay.
And is this a joint project between Code and Cell?
Correct.
So both would have equal ownership, I would imagine, or?
Yeah, it was set up by LLP.
And I had a question in regards to the gradient change. Stormwater drainage. I know that in your drawings, you stipulate that you hope that you'll be able to drain the roof drains to Spring Street.
Yeah.
But we don't see any stormwater drainage plans yet.
Yeah.
Have your engineers gotten to the point yet where they're gonna know if they're gonna be able to drain, in particular also the driveways, if those are at the same gradient?
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of sheet runoff
Yeah,
going
so I
towards the
spo-
back.
So I wanted to catch up with them before the meeting, and I did.
Yeah.
So all the roofs are able to be pitched or tied into the existing sanitary / storm lateral. I can't remember if it's sanitary and storm, it's separate there. But we checked the inverts,
It's
we're
gotta
able,
be separate.
yeah, so we're able to hit that there. We did a quick check on sewer before we came to, and we're confident that the lower unit we can make work without, don't get stuck on record. We're pretty sure we can work without an ejector pump for that, which we want to get away from if you don't have to for the sanitary. Regarding the driveway, we would, the way that, well, so for a double family house, the way that it would be read with the DEC would be just by itself, you should be able, if you don't make it any worse of a condition than it was prior, you're okay. But we are adding impervious surface there. So we would work through it. If we had to do minimal capture or some sort of storm plantings or some sort of detention, we would, but we don't expect there to be much given that most of it's roof and you're only adding a little bit of impervious surface.
I was just wondering if it might be easier just to have a line that goes directly through Code's property at the back and exits out into the storm drain on North Main.
We looked at that at one point as an opportunity for maybe connecting them, but I think that's a great idea if we can make that work, if there is an issue. Anybody else have any questions today?
The driveways, are they gonna be on a grade also?
No, so
they'll be built up?
So they'll be built up with a retaining wall behind them. They will flush out with the first floor here. So you can enter that first floor unit. You would have to go up through your unit to get to that, but I don't think that's that big of a deal really, rather than trying to go down and park a car on a hill and or try to make that parking in the rear was gonna be a bit of a challenge, I think, from cost considerations as well as just making it work for the units. And that's a lot of what, when we went around Chris's existing 34 units to check out the 9 houses that we have included in there, we see that time and time again. Giant driveways that are at a pitch of like whatever it is to make it work. They have pooling issues, they have a lot of pavement gets really beat up in driveways like that, the plowing, so we're trying to keep it as maintenance, no such thing as maintenance free, but as maintenance proof as possible or forward thinking to keep it easy for everybody to run. Keep a good condition for the tenants as well.
If all goes according to plan, what is projected timeline?
So we will resubmit there's a couple of applications. So this project will be submitted for the HHAP and ESHI application that was just released, and we will be applying in about a month. And then the overall application will be resubmitted again in December.
To HCR.
Yes.
What did you lose the point on?
I guess there's a lot more than there's a lot of points, but I think it was just my understanding was it's just hyper competitive. There were a lot of other projects that were just had a little bit more of financing or whatever else, was just whatever subjectively, but from the standpoint of going in against 16 to 20 applications, and you don't know until you put it in how competitive you are, but to hear that you were the next up, I mean, that makes you, not that you wouldn't want to do it again, you want to keep going, but now you really want to go. Okay.
And so
There's hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel,
this was the project that was applied for?
No, so the project that was this project would be the add to the previous project. So the previous project took 9 of Code Inc.'s existing houses that ranged from I believe 2 in a house all the way up to 5, I think. And there were scattered sites existing throughout Jamestown. They went in for HCR funding 25-ish years ago or more. So they're not in bad shape. They run nice properties, but they need updating like any house does at that point. And then part of the application We went in, based on what Tom needed on his end with Stell, and to provide more accessible units, we're doing 2 new builds, one on Prendergast and one on Fairmount in Jamestown. And we went through the zoning appeals process for those based on pretty much similar stuff we're doing here. None of the lots meet the existing width. So it's just kind of dealing with, you want to build something, you got to go through that process. So this was given, this is the next step, and the funding person who works with us thinks that this would potentially give us more points based on more supporters, more whatever else to get over the hurdle. And not lose any point, not come in again and they go, wow, 4 new projects came in and they were so good, you came in 5th again. Coming in 5th is not good if the 4th is the winning place. For us at least. And for anybody, you want to get it. So.
I got a couple of quick questions. Would you garner additional points if zoning variance and planning approval is had prior to submission?
Yes,
Correct.
it's always
Okay.
always having those in place or project readiness.
Okay. And then also, I know that this is gonna be a not-for-profit project, but is Code and Stell willing, and this really isn't our purview as planning commission, but willing to sit down with the city and try to hammer out a tax equivalency
Yeah,
payment?
every project has a payment in lieu of taxes.
Storage for garbage containers. BPU uses the rollout types. Lately, I think that we've all seen those that are actually being stored out in the front of a property. What are your plans for storage of the garbage receptacles? And we've probably requested be stored at the rear of the property.
That's a good comment because I didn't consider it yet. I don't believe. I think we considered at the end of the driveway, maybe with a possible screen, but maybe that could potentially influence how we build that retaining wall and what we think about in the back. So there's a place for them.
Yeah, if it could be screened, I think that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a good point because most of our properties have dumpsters currently, so
Yeah,
that's,
these
thank
are like
you.
individual
Mhm.
containers.
And I apologize for being a little bit uneducated in kind of the Stell housing background, but what type of individuals do you provide housing or housing options to?
Sure, no problem. So Stell, we work with predominantly mentally ill people, but then the project will also have a set aside for anybody who's hearing impaired or physically impaired as well. But for Stell, basically people go through the state hospital system, they're referred to us, we screen them to make sure they're appropriate for a setting. We have 24-hour supervised residences that people get discharged to first. We work with them so that they take their meds on time, they can budget, cook for themselves, clean for themselves, live independently. After being in our 24-hour supervised program for a year to 2 years, could be 3 years, then we work with moving people to more independent living, their own apartment, and that's what these would be then. And then we have counselors for we call them treatment apartments or e-shot apartments, so we have different levels of care, and so this would be a different level of care then.
Great. And that's more so what I was looking for because with it being so close to a school zone,
Sure.
I kind of want to ensure that the individuals there,
Sure. Yeah.
comply with that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we screen people for our program, we make sure that they're not a harm to themselves or others, that they're not, they have any kind of sexual history or anything like that, or we wouldn't want to put somebody near a school like that, so that's not appropriate for our programs.
Great.
What about snow removal, lawn care, maintenance, repair of the property? Who's responsible for that?
Code would be responsible for that. Currently, that's contracted out. That would be the plan moving forward. We receive bids every summer. We just had a new company come on board this year, so we assume that would continue.
The snow removal for the driveways or just push it to the back?
I guess we hadn't thought about that yet. Logistically, maybe back in and push it out. To be honest with you, I'm not sure.
You wouldn't want to, you wouldn't want
You
to
would
push
want
it
to push
right
it
away.
towards the retaining
So we
wall.
can
I would
put-
think they would back in and push it out.
Yeah, we'll talk it over with our civil engineer as well and see what we can come up with to make sure it meets for Yeah, typically it's not really as entertained as much when it comes to a two-family house usually, but actually that's an issue. Where does it actually go? Well, it probably goes in the back half of, you can park 2.5 cars, it's by that half car, or it's by the,
Well,
it's
that's
by that
what's-
towed enclosure that gets smashed into then, so maybe that needs to be out of a durable material
Or
or
there's a
better
retaining
thought
wall
out,
that's gonna
right.
prevent the snow from going over and
Right.
all the water drainage runoff and that kind of stuff.
Are there any efficiency targets that you're planning to look towards for these structures?
Efficiency as in energy?
Yes.
Yeah, so going in with, well, let me just write snow. Snow, where does it go? Okay. Alright, got it. Yeah, so they're gonna be all electric buildings per HCR in the States. Ginormous push towards that. They will meet and exceed all of the energy code requirements. Additionally, there's a thing called Energy Star homes. We'll meet the current revision of that. I don't know if you guys, last time you bought an appliance, went to the TV, but the Energy Star logo, if it's on it, it means it's in the best X percentage of, what they are for energy efficiency.
So
So
are these
the-
mini splits for HVAC?
Heat pump systems, yep. Heat pump ducted, most likely ducted heat pumps, but we'll have to see how the layout is. If we can get away with small cassettes, sometimes we do that as well.
Air conditioning and heat.
Air conditioning and heat is, so the heat pump system runs one way and then it reverses it through the inverter and it runs the other way in the winter, so you get heat and cool. And also we are going in with, it's a thing called Enterprise Green Communities, which is another overlay for green infrastructure and project efficiency. And there's a giant checklist of make your building, you don't use, you don't want formaldehyde in your buildings, right? So they have a checklist. Make sure you use low VOC or no VOC paints. So they're gonna be really, from a standpoint of housing people, it's not gonna be done just to do it. It's gonna be done and it's gonna be, top tier housing for anybody, which is great.
Do you have any houses like this built?
Well, I think from
Or
code standpoint, I think that they already do all over the city pretty much. From the standpoint of the density for
No, I
houses
mean,
like
yeah, like a similar
or
structure. to
you
this.
mean new construction?
New- yeah, new
new
builds, yeah.
construction.
not in this area. We have others that are currently the paradigm shifted recently from, at least on our end. Typically, we would do, my firm for the bread and butter of these jobs typically was around 50 to 60 unit buildings seemed to be the way to go. And not that it doesn't go here, but code came to us and they had a lot of these scattered site things to redo. We have a couple in the pipeline right now, but I don't have one constructed for my firm. But we have the constructor that is working with us, CSS Construction. I know they have a few that they have that are done that we can show you. But we can show you typical units for other buildings too, which are, they're great. They're really nice. It's new one, but it's not new in like the builder's special. It's the tax dollars at work, which is fantastic.
Yeah, there's one close by, like, within reason, it'd be fun to drive by, so if you can get,
Actually, Stell just did.
Oh, Stell has some. Oh yeah, you guys
Yeah.
have some in Dunkirk, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just-
I was gonna ask
Yeah.
in Dunkirk,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
on your way to
Route
Lake Shore?
60, yeah, Maine Maple.
HCR
Yeah,
funded that, right?
exactly,
On the
yeah.
right hand side?
So we did some singles, some doubles, some triples.
Those look really nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. We felt, like you said, it was better to take down a bunch of rundown, dilapidated buildings and build new instead of building a 60-unit apartment complex. Really, that was what lend itself to Dunkirk. So
So does the need here then inform why you're doing these smaller buildings instead of like a 2-bedroom home? I know you want 2-family, but you could have some variance in like, a couple are bigger, a couple are still with 2 families.
yeah, so that was one of the things because we wanted to do as many single families as we could in Dunkirk, and we could only really do 5 single families because they're a lot more expensive than doing multifamily. So you have to do like the part of the scoring is cost per unit, cost per square foot, cost per bedroom, all these different
Okay.
things. So this is what we kind of felt was the best for this project right here. So.
Okay.
But that wouldn't prohibit you from looking at other sites in the city of Jamestown for future projects that may be, 2-unit, 2 bedrooms, 2-bedroom units.
Yeah, no, honestly, people have asked us if we could do something like that in Jamestown, and we'd love to.
Further on North
Yeah, in the
Main,
future. This is something that Code and Stell had been having percolating for a while, so we wanted to get their buildings renovated as part of the project and then have a smaller offshoot of new construction, so.
The one thing I wanted to throw out there is that, because this lies within 500 feet of the state highway, Route 60, it will have to just go through county planning board for 239 review. So I think the quicker we can get this thing started through the secret process, they have a max of 30 days. I can't see any reason why they wouldn't just go ahead and approve this, but we do have to, it does have to go through a county planning board.
Okay.
I don't know if this is a relevant question, but it seems like a little bit of a food desert right there. I'm thinking, where would they walk to the closest store or something?
That
I
is
don't know.
that is one thing that came up. We're still exploring it. I know Tom. Stell has clients that are at our new Appleyard location. That's 633 2nd Street, so it's not too far from the Spring Street site. But I do believe counselors would be on site for supportive services. I don't know if that entails taking them
Yeah.
places.
So
Okay.
I mean, if people needed a ride to get groceries and things like that, we could facilitate that. We try to work in towards more independence, but if we're not gonna let them not have food.
Yeah.
So.
Because otherwise, yes, it's the closest would be 7-Eleven right there, which is not necessarily
Right, yeah.
a grocery store. It would be Tops on Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an opportunity to work with the local market, maybe? It's possible you could put in an application to have a site there, but I know they're somewhat limited in how many sites they can do. But that is something you could look into. If you don't know Nick, their website has all the information to talk about having that farmer's market on wheels.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, frankly, Appleyard Terrace would be a bigger draw probably for
Mm-hmm.
them.
And they're actually on site in our parking lot throughout the summer.
Okay, yeah,
Mhm.
they go to the resource center near you.
Yep.
Is that your parking lot?
No, we're on Windsor, so just a
Oh,
little bit
okay.
down the road
Okay,
on 2nd Street.
good. So how does this fit into the Gateway Lofts plan, which I know has been a really big focus and has what, like 170?
110.
Okay, 110 units. Is there just so much need that you wanna have just all these different options for people, or?
Yeah, that's something completely different. So that's, again, this is, you've got 34 apartments already occupied, and so they're renovating that, and now we're building 10 apartments here, whereas the other one is 110 units, and so yeah, we've been working on that for many, many years. That one is a different type of funding. This is 9% tax credits, that's 4% tax credits. So that's a rolling admission, or a rolling application. We've gotten tacitly approved on it. Now it's just a matter of having it go through the financing department and do all the paperwork. So we're in the pipeline. Whereas this one, we apply, as Chris said, in the fall, and then it's 6 months later, then they make a decision on whether you get funded or not, and then it'll probably take another 6 months to actually close on the financing. So 2 separately different projects.
Your staff would be managing the people in both of those properties,
For the,
right?
yes, for the, yeah.
And do you
consumers.
have the capacity to do that?
Yes, I mean, part of this would be having operational funds to come with it. That was
Oh,
the
okay.
funds, yes,
Great.
so yes, we will have the funding for it.
Great.
But thank you, that's a good question.
Have you, the demolition of this previous structures, were those buried, or were
We haven't
those?
done test borings yet, but I think we would assume
No,
that they're
they
probably just.
They were not buried, they
We're
were.
not, oh, good. We always assume. Any
Yeah.
city lot we go in with, you're gonna have to deal with a bunch of junk. But we're trying to stage everything in an appropriate manner. If we came to you today and everyone said, 2-family houses, then we would have done something else. But hopefully you're gonna say, yeah. And then we would go through the next steps, which would be involving getting a test boring to look at the soils and then figure out how you actually build it.
And I've reviewed the HER application, I know that there's more incentive to build single families than 2 units in the allocation of funds. I could be wrong speaking to that, but I have looked over the new build funding. Is that driving the single family decision here, or is it
Well, it's-
more based on what your, you know, your tenant base
So-
looks like.
So these are doubles here, so it's not the single family, but
I mean, I'm
It's-
sorry,
yeah,
the single
so-
unit, one.
so what Tom alluded to or mentioned, the what's the name of the lofts that you're doing?
Oh,
The
Gateway.
So Gateway Lofts uses what's called 4%, which is like the rolling application. 9% is present a project for usually between in our 50 to like 70 units or something is usually a sweet spot-ish for that. Make it fundable. We're working on in the city of Buffalo now with 2 different clients. We're working with single-family home ownership, which they did fund a lot, but it was AHOP, I believe it's called. There's a separate funding source just for single-family, and under that, if that's what you're referring to, that program is you can build up to 10 houses. They give you whatever number I say is gonna be wrong. Some money up to a certain amount, and then those would be for sale. So that's a different program. What is it?
150,000.
Okay, yeah, so we're working through that now with other areas, but there's a lot of different options out there for things, for different variety of housing, but that's what meets this program requirement the best to make it fundable, get the extra point.
Sorry, Matt. I think this program or this project came up kind of organically. Code had a very, very strong desire we needed rehab on our existing units. They were rehabbed in 1990, 1994, and 1996. New roofs, mechanicals, everything. And so this project kind of came about with the housing crisis in the city. I don't think I'm alone in identifying that that we have a need for housing. So it's kind of our feeling that we're kind of hitting 2 needs here. So I don't think it's necessarily trying to hit points on the application. I think we've identified the need and we're presenting it now.
The need is definitely there. It's more so there are incentives, just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say it was just a point grab either. We were always trying to grow it. It's just how it grow, but it's also you want to either talk about doing it or do it. That's part of it as well. So we want to do it.
Yeah.
So
Have you talked to any of the property owners or neighbors?
We had in the past, this isn't the first time that Code has identified Spring Street. It was before I started with Code, 7 years ago. So we've been in touch in the past, we're working on it now.
Yeah, because I think that project in the past was met with some opposition. It was
Yes.
proposed for down there.
Yes,
I think it was.
opposition,
From neighbors, it was more from other forces
organization.
within the city.
Yes.
Personally, I like it. I like the way that you're altering the vertical and the horizontal vinyl, you know, on the facade, so that it does get a little bit more character to the neighborhood. You also alter coloring on the housing, so it's not all the same colored vinyl.
this is kind of a pencil-ish drawing of what it could be. So, I mean, these aren't necessarily final colors here, but the idea of how, so we're doing with other housing, it's like when you take 10 single-family houses for different initiatives, like I said before, you don't want the stamp job where it feels like you just, we don't do a lot of for-profit work, but the one guy that's working adjacent to another development, he did 400 units in Hamburg or something, and he found baby blue or something, I don't know what it was, like a sale on the siding, and it's all the same blue everywhere. And I said, why'd you do this? It was cheap. I said, okay, well, good for you. But, you don't wanna have that. So, like you said, yeah, we're trying to massage it a bit to change how it looks. There's a couple ideas in here for the front porches, maybe put a planter in one of them, maybe do different, railings in between, but we're still trying to develop that for the submission going forward. So anything that you would want to provide at this end of feedback of, or maybe we should go through these quickly. So this is where we have it to date. So going from, so house 1, we're showing vinyl siding with trim, it's not colored obviously, maybe a metal roof in the front. Changing the coloring on this house, but then changing the siding, and on this one adding some stone base around the front and the pillars. Here was a concept of putting a little planter in between that it could land on to provide you know, an area in the front that could be integral to that porch that, you know, spices it up a little bit or changes it. I think this sort of went back to the other one with maybe a different color. And then I think he interspersed, yeah, so I think for this one, one of my associates interspersed those three. But then you could do 3 moves with the changing of how that looks, and then you do 3 different colors, all of a sudden you have 9 to, you know, even more variations, and there's 7 in the proposal, so you'll be able to make them unique in their own little way.
And are there existing curb cuts for all the proposed houses, or is that something that would have to be?
I don't
have to
remember.
occur?
I don't remember what the
There
survey,
are
that would be.
sporadic, but the condition of them probably wouldn't
Yeah.
be reusable.
Is there any opportunity for the city to redo sidewalks and curbing at the same time for this area? Or is it just? that's just-
Probably not. It's
Well,
likely.
I think
I
it's
know
possible.
that
I mean, maybe
our
not this year, but they could target that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
And I was thinking about sidewalks and the terrace, would they plant trees, is that would that be part of this, or is that something left to other organizations?
I think
the
that-
city between the sidewalk and the curb.
But it
Yeah.
could, but if this is a developer proposed project, we could require that as part of the condition of the approval from planning would be the finding of street trees.
I think you're showing, this is the existing survey, it looks like you have a lot of good, and I drove down here before the meeting too. I think this is current, so 8-inch ash, 36-inch maple, 30-inch maple, and they seem to be regularly spaced. I
Okay.
think there's quite a good amount of tree stock down there already, but the curbs would definitely be something that would, you know, and sidewalk that would definitely tie in nicely to the rest of it there. Looks like maybe we're missing a tree up here, it looks like it's back a little further, so we can plant some, or whatever, you know, whatever you
Some
think is
type of
appropriate.
landscaping plan for the rear, so that we can get a better idea of exactly what is planned for the rear yards.
Okay.
And I think that, and I wish that Mark was here, acting DPW director as a member of the planning commission. I would definitely wanna make sure that he gets his input on the drainage plan.
Okay.
Is there security cameras on buildings outside?
I believe we talked about
Yeah.
that with
Mhm.
Ashley and your desire to have it as well,
definitely.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess if, I haven't heard really anything negative yet, hopefully. So from or if there's anything,
No, I really like it, but I'm thinking, it might only serve 14 people.
right,
I mean, that's great but it's a big
Are those
project for.
14 people local, Jamestown people, or are they moving from?
No, they're predominantly from around here.
Yeah,
I think we gotta take one bite at a time.
yeah,
If
oh, and
it's
to
14
them,
people, it's
whoever,
fine.
it's super important, but
Well,
I'm thinking,
we're creating 14 new units, but we're also enhancing our existing housing stock, and I think that's
Mhm.
extremely important.
yeah, I mean, there's out there right now.
Our maintenance staff does an excellent job, they're fantastic, and we're so understaffed, and they still do a great job, but
Yeah.
like I said, we need this type of funding. At Code, we are a staff of 8, we have 152 units, that's not many less than the housing authority at 246 off the top of my head. We are a large organization in the city, and this funding is critical for us.
What's gonna happen to the stock that you're moving away from?
Our existing tenant, that's a great question. We have an entire relocation plan that is set aside and it's approved with the HCR before this application goes through. So that is all set aside. We'll make sure that existing tenants have housing and they will be allowed to, well, not allowed, but they come right back once the units are rehabbed.
And those houses, are you going to sell them, the ones that you're moving, or are you gonna upgrade them, rehabbing them? Okay.
yeah, so all of those would be upgraded as well to current energy efficiency standards, based on analysis from a third party, or it's not third party, our energy consultant. And yeah, those are gonna be all spruced up and brought up to current standards, all new finishes throughout, kitchens redone, accessibility requirements met for current code.
You have the funding for that already.
No, it's all part of the same
It's all part
application.
of the
This
Part of
is
the
a
same application.
resubmission,
Yeah.
including this
So
development.
these 14 units give them the kind of an edge for that. I like the dignity of the individual units, and
Yeah.
I love that you have driveways. I think bringing in the green space and the backyard is an important component,
Mhm.
because even if there are no kids, people still wanna be able to sit outside
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and have, time to even maybe meet the people that live upstairs or downstairs. I don't know, how that would work, but I think that's really great. I think, color-wise, at one time, Jamestown Renaissance Corporation, we were looking at the historic color palette, Benjamin Moore, just classic colors, that were really the tone of the city.
Okay.
So I don't know, that's paint, so I know that's not final, but that might be a jumping off point.
Can you share that with our team somehow, or with
Yeah,
Casey or
also
somebody
you
else?
just
who
go
can get
on Benjamin Moore online, and there's a
Okay.
historic collection.
And siding companies have the same historic.
Okay.
You can go to any of their siding companies.
So is it just a general historic collection, or were there certain colors in there that you saw from
Just
that?
general.
Or-
I think just general.
There's like 42
Yeah.
colors, I think,
Okay.
and
They're
they're
just more muted.
muted, they're,
Yeah.
I know, I painted my house that color, and it would help make it fit in with the bigger neighborhood potentially.
You would not like this coming out of CAD, which we draft, and so Brian, who works with us, has all his colors, like, he had lime green and like tangerine, he printed it out, he went, no. No.
Wrong group for that.
Yeah.
But they're, the royal blues, the Jamestown reds, the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sort of colonial colors.
Right.
Would, so then, just so we understand the next steps for this then, if what we're showing is reasonable, which I think it is, we need those variances next, so would the next step on our end to go to the zoning board of appeals to make sure that we're okay on that end, and maybe,
So the seeker would have to be done, so zoning board
Yeah.
usually relies upon planning commission to approve the seeker, and then zoning board will utilize our approval on the seeker.
okay,
Or neg deck on the seeker, so that probably needs to be step one, would be to get, this is, from what I saw, it's gonna be an unlisted action under state seeker. So you just use
short
part
form.
one of the short EAF.
Yep, good.
And then
Got
if you send that in as quickly as, get that completed, send it in, and then city staff can start working on it. I would be more than happy to assist with that
Great,
if staff would like my assistance.
because it's 7 separate parcels currently, and then we're going in with 7 parcels to comply with code, do you want 1 per parcel or 1 for everything?
One for everything,
Excellent.
using
I like
the area outline map on the EAF.
Okay. Great,
For planning, yes, for zoning, I believe I have to have
Individual
parcels.
Will zoning accept the seeker based upon the entire area, or does it have to identify each individual parcel?
Not sure, I would tend to lean that it would be individual for parcels. So
Okay,
you guys may have to do a lot of voting.
You can use the area diagram, but then list each individual parcel in the narrative on the
When you vote on it, you just vote on.
Yeah. On each one.
parcel.
I mean, that makes sense to me, because it would be, I mean, I doubt there's gonna be any change in the seeker 7 lots down. I wouldn't think, right? It would be the same question
No,
and
it'd
answers.
be the
Yeah,
same question.
Right, okay,
And the only thing could make a difference would be if there was a historically designated building.
Right.
Contiguous. I did do a quick EAF mapper earlier this week, just to take a quick look at it. There's a couple of sites that could be nominated for historic preservation, but at least from what I saw, they aren't close enough in proximity
Yeah.
that it would impact the project where you had to have SHPO review and sign off.
I like the project overall. It makes sense, and housing in the city is a big big, you know, leap that we all need to accept and move forward on. The only thing about the project that kind of, for me personally, that kind of isn't like jumping for joy is that in that area, in that Love School area, housing there for the families that would attend that school or send their kids to their school is being lost, you know, daily. So we're losing kind of that neighborhood for that school, that school. So it would be nice if it was for children to attend that school, right? Families to live in that district there, because you know, Prendergast, Fulton, creeping up to Lakeview View, and 10th, 11th, 12th, 14th, down that way to North Main, they're less and less inviting for families, and Love School is hurting because of that, right? So that is the only thing I could say in that realm, but you definitely, the housing side of things, we need housing, but the family side of that, especially in the school district, is kind of like, I wish it were for more a family situation, but that also, you're challenged with, you know, the grade of that. It's not really a great parcel for a family home, right? The grade changes, a backyard's not really that feasible there. So it fits, right? If it were, you know, Fulton, which we're trying to figure something out with as a group, I'd say, you know, we can do something. The Spring Tree, I love your project, and the time it's been taking. For me, I like it. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have any questions? Larry? Anyone else? You guys have any other questions?
I think just, or maybe after the meeting, if it's now or whoever we talk to, just to understand, if we're filing seeker, can we file that via email to the proper parties, and then you can get kicked off the clock on that, and then would you have to have a special meeting to vote on it then, and would we have to attend, or can we attend virtually, or
Yeah.
what? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, yeah, we'll get that in as soon as possible then. And then we would want to submit for the next ZBA meeting, which would be with the other one that we're going back into for the ones that we approved last year for the other two houses, and we'd wanna present that as well. And then just so I understand the clocks on my end, so if we get into the ZBA meeting, which is, I believe, in the beginning of July, correct? Okay, so could we then, with the zoning board of appeals, they would have to vote on the variances first before the planning commission can vote on the project, correct? Because it would have to be approved, or how does that work?
No, not correct.
Opposite.
We could approve the site plan prior to ZBA approving the
Oh, okay,
variances.
great, okay.
And then our approval will be contingent upon receiving any and all variances that are required.
So really, we just have to do a lot of work and get it to you as fast as possible to get,
That's
okay.
it, it's on your shoulders.
Great. Alright, we do that well. That's all on my end, thank you,
We just have our
appreciate it.
regular June meeting to do that, right? We wouldn't have to have a
Yeah.
special meeting. Okay.
Yeah, because that still gives them plenty of time, and it gives staff plenty of time. And that's contingent upon staff approval, the recommendation.
Yeah.
Great,
And also the application for site plan approval that would have to go along with the package for 239 approval to county planning. So the sooner you can have that in, and what is the fee that's due on submission? $100. We're one of the cheapest municipalities around, folks.
It's $150 for ZBA.
okay. Is the county submission made through Jamestown and
Made
then
through the
forwarded
city,
to it?
yeah.
Okay, so if we give you a complete package for site plan approval, that would be forwarded on, for their review then?
Correct.
Okay,
Or
great.
whatever is required by the county would be.
Okay, and did we need representation at that board meeting? Okay,
Probably.
are they nice?
They are very nice.
Good, okay, great. Thank you.
You should know you're in trouble.
Yeah, in trouble.
You know, those county officials can be,
Especially with us.
they can be rough, yeah.
Great. Anything else, guys? Thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the feedback.
Is there anything for new business?
Do you wanna mention this?
Yeah, I'm gonna mention the packets that I gave you guys, we got our formula allocation for, the amounts are listed there, the packets for CPG and home investment partnership. The packets are what we're giving out to everyone who wants to participate in our public engagement. It breaks down what CDBG is, how you spend money, what home is, how you spend money, the, income guidelines that FUD has for 2025. And there is a community survey, embedded in that fun little QR code on the front page. There's a couple of, public meetings coming up, one being June 14th and the other one is June 24th. One's a Saturday, one's a Tuesday, so one's in the morning, one's in the evening. And it's going to be a full presentation of, our annual action plan and our consolidated 5-year plan. And I encourage you all to fill out our community survey. The very front page is our kayak tour, which is, June 6th, and that is for the comprehensive plan. Joy will be leading that, along with her team, and we have 10 kayaks, I believe, right now available. I have some kayaks that I'm bringing for anyone who shows up, so I encourage you all to come. We get a lot of questions on how to report concerns to the Department of Development, so there's a little form in there that'll walk you through that as well. And we are encouraging any and all feedback this year for our plans to be handwritten. So in your packet, if you have thoughts, comments, questions, concerns about our HUD funding, please write them in and scan them over, drop them off, mail them, and we'll get them all submitted to our plan. That's it.
I guess I have a general question. The pilot, how are pilots negotiated, or how do we come up with the numbers?
Elliot and the assessor.
So they
It's
just
not
sort of-
really, not really an
there's a
official pilot, it's
formula?
more a tax equivalency payment agreement. So it's something that's negotiated between code and Stell and the city. So I don't think there's any, I don't know, I'm not sure how it's handled now, I know how it was handled back in the Teresa administration.
Just, I was just curious if there's a formula.
Elliot would have the answer, or Heather downstairs.
I'm kind of confused. I thought there were concerns about cuts to CDBG and.
Yeah, so fiscal year 2025 has been passed.
That has been.
That was the presidential budget that was passed in January.
Okay.
So the coming up presidential budget that failed, I think today or yesterday, at the federal level, cut CDBG and home out completely.
Mm-hmm.
So that is our fiscal year 2026.
Okay.
So where the presidential budget starts January, we, like the departments, federal departments don't get their kick until fall, which is when we get our allocation.
Did the council met last night? Did they vote on sending a letter?
Yes, it passed.
Did it pass? Okay. I didn't see anything in the paper about it.
It was unanimous.
Good. Okay.
Yep. So there's a resolution that was passed last night, promoting the preservation of our HUD funds, and other progress done.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it, but there's a couple of things in the federal level right now for, like clawing back and getting things codified, so, DOGE isn't just like pulling things back without having it properly documented in law. That so far has failed also, but as of right now, these funds have passed through Congress and it's our allocation for this fall.
Okay.
Hopefully you did.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
last night we also had $500,000 passed to reallocate from our regular homeowner occupied rehabilitation into home redevelopment to support similar projects like this. So it's large scale rather than putting all of our eggs in one basket as the homeowner occupied rehab.
Mm-hmm.
There's money available for our developers.
Good.
Do we have a new member.
Yeah, one.
Oh, yes.
We went up the elevator really well.
I know.
I didn't know if there was a time
Yes,
and
go ahead,
place to
introduce
kind of,
yourself.
so I'm Dylan Monroe. I own Monroe and More LLC. We're a local builder. I won't give you kind of the life story of my business, but we've been in business about 7 years. I'm Jamestown born, raised, JHS graduate. I'm also a firefighter downstairs. I coach the high school football team. I have 4 sons. They all go to Jamestown Public School. So I'm a Jamestown guy, born and raised, and through and through. I'm here for at least 14 more years until my retirement, but my business is going to be here forever, so I probably won't go anywhere. Might take a couple vacations down south after retirement. That's the plan. There's got a plan too, right? But no, I have a real passion for housing and development and infill. I work very closely with Crystal and the mayor's office, trying to push and help and consult with any directive that can kind of get that wheelhouse moving, because we all know when we need it. And it kind of fell that I would look to be on the planning commission, and I'm honored to be here. It's great to be a part of the the processes that get these things moving. So if I'm a part of a union, I do this kind of structure, but my union's much different than this kind of setup. So if you can help me in any direction, or even speaking today, I'm more than happy for the criticism.
No, just speak up.
No criticism, we
Yeah.
don't want criticism.
Yeah.
All questions are good questions.
But,
And you also went to the developers forum a couple weeks
Yes,
ago,
I went,
which was-
I didn't want to speak to it in those, but we are looking to do some infill projects along the same corridor that Stell is working in. We're working to try and even get some of the funding that Stell is going after. That's a big, pool to jump into, but it's something that, we think we should field. But personally and business wise, our scope is, and our target is infill. We're looking to automate the build process to make it cheaper and provide, a more affordable option